Hello there, I'm Kaz. It's 2015, a fresh new start and a brand new year after such a foul one with 2014. So, why is January always filled with nothing but re-releases?
It never ceases to amaze me how little ever comes out of January in terms of video games. After the busy holiday season with game release after game release after game release, the year always begins with a wave of remakes and remasters, something with no real reason behind it. At least with the summer drought, you can argue that most people are outside enjoying the weather, but January?
Unless you live south of the equator, the only thing you're going to be enjoying at this time of year is a blanket and a hot cup of tea. Oh well, I guess we can consider ourselves with the only game of this month that isn't a re-release. Citizens of Earth.
Citizens of Earth is yet another homage to classic JRPGs to start on Kickstarter, only this time their campaign didn't go so well. Yet surprising as it may seem given how many success stories are reported to come out of Kickstarter like Shovel Knight and the Banner Saga, most of the games that see crowdfunding never even make it to the halfway mark of their goal, and the developers of Citizens of Earth, Eden Industries, were no exception, only getting around 36% of its $100,000 goal. Thankfully, ATLUS picked up the project and published it on every console that isn't the Xbox One. Anyway, does Citizens of Earth serve its RPG brethren well, or should ATLUS impeach this inexcusable campaign of a game? Let's find out. As Vice President of the world, who apparently lives with his mother, you are awakened to discover a protest in your hometown. After running this protest in a not-so-peaceful manner, the VP discovers that the local cafe, Moonbox, is an alien vessel, so naturally, he sets out to discover the truth behind the cafe. The writers were very self-aware of the sheer absurdity of the game's plot when they penned the script for the game, because Citizens of Earth is filled with a ton of over-the-top scenarios and hilarious jokes, though most of the jokes tend to revolve around one punchline. The Vice President is an idiot.
And yet he's still a better politician than Rob Ford. And yes, you can name the VP Rob Ford in this game, which makes it all the more amusing to imagine Rob Ford living with his mother and breaking into citizens' homes to steal their possessions. Again, still a better politician than the real Rob Ford. Probably a better football player too.
Putting aside the amusement factor from naming the cast, it's still a thoroughly funny RPG, definitely capturing the quirky humor that so many people enjoyed about that other quirky RPG that the internet totally isn't overrating, no siree, no ho ho. It's one of the funniest games that I played in a long time, and it had me laughing out loud more times than I can count. Throw in some fun fourth wall jokes and clever pop culture references and you've got one humorous title. Citizens of Earth is an RPG split between Earthbound-inspired battles and recruiting citizens to fight your own battles for you.
There's a political joke in there somewhere, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Comparisons between this and Earthbound are inevitable, so allow me to clarify. When I say they're inspired battles, I mean that in terms of aesthetic alone. Sure, there's that quirky humor in every character's actions, but said actions all revolve around orbs. The amount of orbs a character can carry varies per character, but each of them has several attacks and abilities that increase the amount of orbs in reserve, while others decrease the amount a character holds, with more powerful attacks often consuming more orbs. There's also some abilities that don't use or lose orbs, but they're fairly uncommon. It's a neat system, not the most advanced, but it is an improvement over the usual battle system you'd see during the 60-bit era. The problem is that very few battles actually require any use of strategy. Early on, it's a fairly challenging experience that requires you to make smart decisions in order to survive because you have a limited amount of characters and moves, but after the first 2 chapters, you can get by most battles by simply tapping the same button and using the same attack over and over again without having to worry about tactful use of your skills or any sort of strategy. The boss battles are mostly pushovers. Hit them with your most powerful attack and they'll be down in a turn or two, something which is made all the easier with the game giving you free orbs for exploiting an enemy's weakness. You can change the game's difficulty, which I did, but it still doesn't make for the most challenging of RPGs. That said, it is good that they included the option to restart battles if things go miraculously bad, though the items you used beforehand don't seem to return when you restart. It reminds me of the turn system for the PSP remake of Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, in that it's useful for fixing major mistakes made in battle, but again, outside of the opening hours and the occasional boss fight, you're probably not going to find yourself using this. If there is one lesson Citizens of Earth learned from Earthbound, it's that convenience is the key when it comes to the lengthy time you'll spend in RPGs. Yes, it does an instant win thing every now and then, which frankly isn't that useful since this game it only gives you a fraction of the experience you would have earned had you actually fought them in battle, but there's a lot of more useful features to make the experience all the more smooth. At least, in battle. For example, it resolves one of my biggest pet peeves with the genre. When you defeat an enemy, you immediately gain a set amount of experience. You can even level up in battle if you've earned enough. This means if you do run, you keep all the experience you've earned up to that point in the battle. Believe me, this is incredibly helpful in some of the longer and more challenging fights early on in the game. even if a character is knocked out, they still gain experience and can level up, which automatically revives them at full HP, and buffs will carry over from battle to battle. Outside of battle, after you beat a boss, enemies won't actively attack you, which is very helpful when going through older areas. I do wish there was an auto battle feature given how frequent and easy battles happen to be, but the rest of these additions make up for a little inconvenience the lack of the feature causes. The other half of Citizens of Earth is spent wandering around and recruiting the 40 potential party members, each with their own unique abilities and talents. For example, your brother can order new items for you, while the lifeguard can swim underwater. It's a great way to develop the game's world and show the uniqueness of the characters without a word of dialogue. Remember my Persona Q review where I complained about its failure to inform the player about the mechanics through the narrative? Here, it's the exact opposite. Their role in the game and the world in which the game takes place in is informed by the talents they possess and the actions they can use inside and outside of battle. Though the game is beatable in a little over 10 hours, the meat of it all lies in exploring the land to its fullest with every citizen at your side and completing a plethora of side quests. In addition, their talents can level up, though the usefulness of this tends to vary. Some, like the teacher, are helpful for leveling up inactive party members while exploring an area. Some more classes let you raid more party members in the same amount of time. Others, like the homeless guy, are just adding to the amount of items you'll never use. It is impressive that they gave each character their own unique role, though it would have been better if the characters were roughly the same level as the enemies you're currently facing, instead of starting off at a relatively low level. Speaking of levels, when you do level up, you'll receive a boost by your party members in addition to the usual increase in stat, which is an helpful way of getting the player to experiment, to try out new party members and encourage them to seek out others. It's just a shame that getting as many citizens as you can is such a chore. Most of the time the recruiting process boils down to fetch quests and mediocre minigames. The recruitment process for the musician is a poor man's DDR, while the exterminator has you running around touching bugs. Heck, some of them join you by doing a plot-relevant quest, which isn't any different from just having the character join you after a certain point in the story. And, as I said earlier, the game's convenience begins and ends in battle. The navigation is terrible. There are so many icons leading to the same person, side quest, or destination, but with so many different directions and goals to them that it becomes disorienting, not helped by some questionable area design or areas where the map simply disappears. While you don't normally need to recruit specific characters to continue your journey, it becomes a requirement later on, namely in Chapter 5. While I won't spoil what happens, I will say that Chapter 5 is an absolute mess, with way too many enemies to fight or run from on a single screen, and one of the worst variations of 21 in any game. Still, it's better than the movie 21. Money is not visible when you buy anything, nor does it show how much you earn from battle. The only time I've ever been able to find out the amount of cash you're carrying is when saving the game. As far as the voice work is concerned, ATLUS' regulars do a good job adding to the game's personality with their voice work, with the VP being the funniest of them all, that smooth-talking 1940s politician uttering some of the most ridiculous lines ever spoken in a game. Unfortunately, I can't really show any of these scenes with their voice work intact because, for some reason, my capture card won't pick up any of the audio off my PC. Though, again, naming him Rob Ford made it all the more hilarious. The art style leaves something to be desired, though the animation is pretty smooth. It is nice that each area has a different foreground in battle, but the backgrounds are a constant eyesore. This wasn't the case with Earthbound. Unfortunately, they're not the only visual oddity on display here, as some of the characters look surprisingly pixelated. They might not look that way on a smaller screen or this video on YouTube, but on a decent sized one, it's definitely distracting. Enemies who look like they have 0 health in their bar you keep on fighting, a scanland that appears in certain areas which for some reason didn't appear in any of the recorded footage, experience points for invisible party members, and a myriad of other bugs make you wonder how any of this got past the QA team. As far as the PC version is concerned, I hesitate to call it a great rendition of the game, partially because of those aforementioned faults, but also because there's no options menu after you boot up the game. It just starts up with new game, continue, and exit. Once you get past the screen, there is no way to adjust the resolution or any other visual settings, not that there are that many of them. There are audio settings in game, which to their credit include separate audio sliders, but as far as the graphics go, nothing. You also can't rebind the keys, but at least you can plug in a controller, which works just fine. In addition, it's not exactly technically sound. The game crashed on me once, and when I unplugged my headphones, the game music stopped playing.
Oh, and messing with the audio settings didn't fix it, nor did plugging in the speakers that I have hidden behind the screen. At least, I think they're hidden.
Now the PC version has received a patch, but from what I've seen, there's still a few problems including the game crashing, and the abysmal menu settings have yet to be fixed. Also don't get why it opens up in a new window and needs to be clicked on, but hey, at least it runs on my PC unlike Fallout 3, which does nothing. Whatever, guess I'll play DMC. For the record, I was able to get my hands on code for the Vita version too, and it's even more technically faulty. Not that I expected it to be the better of the two, just that I hoped it wouldn't be plagued with the same problems the PC version had. Something which is only true because it has a ton of its own issues. There were numerous audio glitches, characters go through areas they shouldn't normally be able to, some enemies couldn't be engaged for one reason or another, and the first boss was not triggered by the event that it should have, instead being replaced by 4 regular enemies in the area. No, it's not a different fight per version because I went back to that same area and the boss came out to fight the second time. But that's the least of its worries. The Vita version crashed 5 times, froze once, and failed to open on the Vita's menu. In fact, the system wouldn't respond after a couple of minutes of this failed loading, so I tried to shut it down and restart the system, but then this happened. Yep, it caused the system to face the blue light of death. Geez, even Tearaway didn't give me this much trouble. Mind you, this is a different Vita than the one I had during that rant, but that's besides the point. As of this recording, the Vita version has yet to receive any patch and remains in this broken state. However, putting aside these technical faults, the rest of the presentation is not great, especially the sound design. The music is completely disposable, which is unusual for an RPG. While they're not bad tunes per se, the soundtrack fails to produce a single one that sticks out or gets stuck in your head. The only part of the music that sticks out is the gap of silence between a track's loop. The sound effects are decent, though some of them don't match up with the monsters you're fighting. The disco crab makes a telephone ring when it's defeated because... disco? I don't get it.
So you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that bad look upon your face. I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your keys.
I'd make a joke about politics not belonging in video games and this being an example of why, but I really did want to like Citizens of Earth more than I did.
It's great to see ATLUS picked up this quirky title after its failed Kickstarter, from a relatively unknown developer no less, and give it a chance at greatness, but Citizens of Earth falls short of its obvious inspiration. Its promising start quickly devolves into a cavalcade of mundane battles and uninteresting environment. The story is hilarious from start to finish, but reaching the end is a bit of a struggle given how repetitive the entire experience happens to be. Unlike a lot of recent ATLUS games, which seem to think adding $10 to the normal price is somehow acceptable, this one is only $15, so at least it's not terribly expensive, but it doesn't make this lackluster new launch any less average. It is, at the end of the day, difficult to not like a game where you fight a gingerbread robot with a hobo and conspiracy theorist, but Citizens of Earth's pile of problems make it difficult to enjoy outside of its wonderful writing.
I'm aware that some of these criticisms may be limited to the PC version and the Vita version. It's possible that the console version or the 3DS version don't feature the same issues listed here. But out of the two versions that I have played, neither of them are free from the many technical faults or dull gameplay. Citizens of Earth earns a 5.5 out of 10. On PC, the Vita version earns a 3 out of 10. 2015 has already begun, and it's not looking much better than last year. That's all for now, folks. Until next time, game on, my friends. This year is going to be just as bad as the last one, isn't it? What could possibly stop this year from being awful? Yeah, that might work.